Welcome everyone to VMblog's continuing coverage of the VMware Explore 2022 event in San Francisco. Today we're joined by Chris Rogers, the technology evangelist at Zerto. Chris, it's great to speak with you today.
Yeah, hi David, really great to be on.
I know the VMblog audience is very familiar with Zerto, but if you could maybe kick the discussion off with just a quick overview of the company.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah. Hopefully, most people that know VMware will know Zerto, but if you don't, then so Zerto's been around for about 12, 13 years now. The first iteration of its product was about 11 years ago. So essentially, we're a data protection company. So we help organizations protect, recover, move data and applications using continuous data protection. We've pretty much kind of, I'll say, invented that market, but kind of made it mainstream, especially in the VMware world as well. But not just in the VMware ecosystem as well, across on-premises, hybrid, and also multi-cloud environments as well. So we really focus on providing, best-in-class disaster recovery, ransomware recovery, and a multi-cloud mobility, in a single scalable software solution.
And maybe you can tell us a little bit about your partnership with VMware and how you fit into the ecosystem.
Yeah, great question. So we've had a very strong and strategic relationship with VMware. You're going back to pretty much Zerto's inception. So our first ever product was hypervisor-based replication. So inside of ESXi, moving data between two VMware sites, right? So that was 11 years ago. And I think actually it won Best in Show in VMworld 2012, so I think it's the 10-year anniversary of that first product coming out and winning Best in Show this year, which is great. So ever since that, the inception of that product, it's kind of grown from there, and as features and functionality and other products have come along in the Zerto suite. But the root's very much in the VMware ecosystem, and we're still winning business and onboarding new customers with that same architecture and that same kind of principle today of replicating between 2 or 3 or 4 VMware estates, with minimal data loss and minimal downtime. So still heavily ingrained in the VMware community and heavily ingrained in its ecosystem as well.
And if you could talk about the types of problems that Zerto is solving for VMware shops or the folks with a VMware implementation.
Yeah, so I mean the main things are eliminating downtime and eliminating data loss, essentially. So Zerto offers continuous data protection. So inside of the hypervisor stack, so inside of ESXi itself. So we have no impact on production workloads, and we're really kind of bridging that gap between kind of traditional backup, where backup will normally happen maybe once a day, or maybe kind of at most, twice or 3 times a day. But with Zerto, we're doing that on a continuous basis. So we're seeing recovery point objectives of 5 seconds and below. So really minimizing that amount of data loss and making sure that we can bring those applications and that data up as quickly as possible. So building the automation and orchestration into the product and not relying on separate products to do that as well. So kind of the biggest benefits is actually the data loss, the downtime that we save people, and then also the ability to move that data wherever they want them. So if they are a VMware house today, they probably have 2 or more VMware sites. But as this is the VMware Explore this year, and it's a multi-cloud and hybrid cloud event, we are seeing many VMware customers starting to move into hybrid cloud or multi-cloud estates with, VMware on Google Cloud or a public cloud or even Kubernetes as well. So actually being able to have an agnostic data protection vendor who can protect you across that estate is going to be really valuable, I think. So that's where we play is. We know where you've come from. We came from the same roots of VMware, but we're also going in the same direction as well. We're trying to adopt those newer technologies and adopt those places that people want to get to.
And could you give us a rundown of Zerto's technology offerings? What does it do, and how do you differentiate yourself in the market?
Yeah, so as we say, we've got a few products in the market at the moment. So the first one is our core Zerto product. It's been around, as I said, for 11 years and has grown and moved up and grown up, I should say. So that is traditional hypervisor-based replication, taking virtual machines, moving them to 2 or more sites at the same time. So that's where a lot of our customers currently sit today. But we've also got Zerto for Kubernetes, which essentially is the same core principles using continuous data protection, but in those Kubernetes offerings. So for this event, probably vSphere Tanzu is going to be the VMware Tanzu is going to be the biggest one there. So offering the same type of and the same level of protection, with RPOs of seconds and RTOs of minutes, but for your Kubernetes applications. And we also have Zerto in Cloud for AWS. So again, using automation orchestration to automate disaster recovery and ransomware recovery between AWS regions, and then launched at HP Discover was actually HP GreenLake for disaster recovery, which is currently in preview. But again, we're excited to show people at VMware Explore what that was all about as well. And what makes us different? So what makes us different, I think, is our true CDP. So no one does CDP like us in the marketplace. We've had plenty of other people try and still try and catch up. We're, as I said, the first product was 11 years ago now, and no one's still near where we are for CDP today. And we're the only player who can do that for VMware, Hyper-V. If you want to move into the VMware ecosystem from Hyper-V or somewhere else, we can migrate you into that. You're using cross-hypervisor replication, but also inside a public cloud and inside of Kubernetes environments as well. So it's not just a single product for a single use case. It's actually across the hybrid cloud spectrum. And we are software only as well, so we don't rely on any hardware or anything else like that. So it's really going to speed people's ability to and agility into public cloud and adopting those newer applications as well. So I think those are our biggest differentiators, I'd say.
And, over the years at VMworld, a lot of vendors would use that as sort of a coming out party for new products or what have you. Is Zerto making any new announcements around VMware Explore? And if so, can you give us those details?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're not demoing in or announcing anything brand new. However, we're kind of promoting all the best of what Zerto has delivered over the last 12 months and beyond as well. To things like enhanced ransomware recovery features, so adding immutability for Azure S3 compatible devices such as Scality and those types of things. New platforms available, so VMware Tanzu and Google Cloud Kubernetes Engine and all those different places as well. But also being able to give people the experience of GreenLake for disaster recovery, which is actually still in preview. So that only launched at HP Discover, which was the back end of June. So it's very, very new still. It's still in preview, but we are going to be demoing that on the show floor as well. So if you have anyone who's interested in looking at that, what the HP GreenLake platform can do for disaster recovery, underpinned by Zerto, then get yourselves down to our booth and we can show you some live demos of that, which is really going to be cool.
Now, at the show, VMware is going to be talking about the big picture on the keynote stage. What big themes or trends do you see moving into 2023 that your company is interested in?
Yeah, so I think it's a really interesting move for VMware, and I'm really glad that they've moved into this kind of big picture and multi-cloud kind of a conference, because that's exactly where Zerto is moving as well. Kind of not just letting people use vSphere on premises and in public cloud, but into multiple different types of workload now. So we're seeing this multi-cloud hybrid cloud. So some of the first customers that we had that were doing VMware to VMware replication are now adopting different parts of the Zerto platform to move into public cloud, move into Kubernetes workloads, and then protect those environments using Zerto as well. So we're seeing that multi-cloud hybrid cloud trend really blow up. Disaster recovery as a service is huge as well. So being able to utilize, public clouds and service providers, especially, running those sovereign cloud platforms, utilizing Zerto for those disaster recovery implementations. And then probably the biggest one for us is ransomware. We're seeing it everywhere. It's all in the news. Pretty much every single vendor has got a story about it, but really honing in on how Zerto can help people, with their ransomware recovery strategies. Because I think that's going to be a crucial part of 22-23 is, how do we get out of the hole if we find ourselves in that situation? How do we get ourselves back out again? So yeah, those are the key topics I think that we're really interested, but where they align with VMware's vision as well.
Chris, this has been great information. Is there any chance we can get a quick demo to show the folks who are watching this at home what the technology looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just fire that up for you now.
Hi everyone, welcome to my demo environment. So this is the Zerto interface you can see in front of me here. So I've got the dashboard open at the moment, so we can see some nice, red, amber, green statuses. Everything is green in my demo environment for once. But you can see up here we've got some nice headline figures. So obviously my demo environment, I've got 5 virtual protection groups, 4 virtual machines protected, a total of 122 gig protection. Currently 99% compression, and also a 7-second average RPO across all my virtual machines I have protected. So in this demo, I kind of want to show you the various ways that Zerto could help you recover from a ransomware attack. So it's going to be a very basic ransomware attack in my environment, but you can see how this might be able to scale out to a bigger environment, or how Zerto could help you do that. So let's jump straight in. So this is my file server. I've got some incredibly important files in here, you can see. So some PDFs and some photos and whatever we may have. So if we open these up, we can see these are perfectly legitimate PDFs. Here's my Zerto for Kubernetes datasheet that I want to share with everybody and keep. And if we look here, we have a nice legitimate application. So if I were to click on this legitimate application and not know really what it is, but you can see here now my files, something's happened. As a user, I'm not really sure what's happened now. But I'll come back into my important files, and you can see, unfortunately, they are all encrypted. I cannot open them anymore. I do not have access to my data. So how is Zerto going to help me recover from this? So if we log back into Zerto here, and we go into our virtual protection groups, we can see we've got our file server 02 here protected to 2 different places at the same time. So it's protected locally, so back to the same vCenter, but also remotely to a secondary site. So in this instance, I'm actually going to do a local recovery of just the files and folders that I needed. So this ransomware attack was relatively isolated, only impacted my important files on file server 02. So if I come into here, I can go into restore. I can restore files. So then I choose the file server in the VPG01. So I'm going to be choosing here my file server 02 local. So I click that, I click next. And now I choose my point in time I want to recover to. So we know when this happened, but essentially what we can do is we can try any of these points in time and see if it's still encrypted. So let's go back anytime you want. And as you can see, these checkpoints we have here are only 5 or 10 seconds apart each one. So it gives us massive granularity to choose from. So instead of losing potentially 24 hours or 6 or 8 hours worth of data, we're only going to lose potentially seconds worth of data. So if I come in here, it's the time's 11:21. So if I come back to 11:18 or 11:18, close to 11:18 as I can. So we've got 11:18:02, perfect. So let's mount that. So essentially what we're doing here is we're creating a virtual view of what that virtual machine looked like at 11:18, and we've mounted it inside of Zerto. So we're not actually building any virtual machines. We're not using any additional compute at this point in time. So now I have this in front of me. I can now browse this checkpoint and see if the things that I need are actually there. So I come into users, my administrator, and I come into my desktop, and now I can have actually look inside my important files. Yep, they are here as PDF. So I want to restore just my important files, but I want to make sure that I'm not restoring the whole desktop, because we want this legitimate application not to be brought it back in. So we just want this folder here, and we want to restore them to the original location. So we go into original location, we choose the credentials we want. So in this instance, I've preloaded my file server credentials into here, and I click start. So this is now going to be essentially taking the files from inside of our journal, which, as you know, it's using continuous data protection. That's why we can get these sub 10-second RPOs. So it's taking them from inside of the journal and actually putting them straight back into our virtual machine. And this is being done without any agents or anything else inside the virtual machine. So it's incredibly clever technology, and it's going to save us a lot of time from recovering backups or doing anything else, or losing loads amount of data. So whilst this is, if we're waiting for this to recover and restore, it's only going to take a couple of minutes to recover those files. But I want to show you another way that we could possibly recover from using Zerto. So we can recover those straight back into the virtual machine. Great. But what happens if it was a bigger attack? So if it actually impacted the OS itself, so we couldn't actually recover to the production machine because that production machine was locked out completely. What would we do then? So actually we can come into our remote copy here and do a failover, and we can do a live or a test failover. So in this instance, I'm going to do a test just to validate that my virtual machine is okay, because again, I'm not 100% sure when this actually happened. So I come in here, I choose my remote settings, and I come in here and I'm going to choose my my checkpoint again. So 11:23. So we're going to go back 11:18:02. Let's choose the same checkpoint, but we could choose any of these from, we've got 859 different points in time we could choose. So we could choose any of them. So let's choose a different one just to make sure I'm not bluffing anything. So 11:17:02. Click OK, and we click start, and we're going to start that failover test. So what we're doing here is essentially building out the whole VM as it looked at 11.17.02 into our disaster recovery site, without any problems. And that's going to be fully automated and orchestrated as well. So once I've clicked the failover test button, you can see I've already got the VM here. So essentially now what we're doing is combining all the files, making sure it all looks the same as it did at that checkpoint. And now we're going to be powering on that virtual machine. And we're going to power on that virtual machine according to the settings that you've given it inside of the protection group. So for failover testing, especially for ransomware, I'm going to make sure this is on a clean room network and with an IP address that can't go to anywhere else on my network. Because if this is infected or has ransomware still in it, I don't want to recover it straight into production and have useless data and then potentially proliferate that ransomware back into my systems again. So I'm booting this onto a clean room network on an isolated IP address. So whilst that just boots up, let's flip back to Zerto. And now you can see that our task for the files is finished. So if we come back into here, we can see inside of the important files, we have a Z restored folder. And if we go into our Z restore folder, we can see all of our files and folders from just seconds previous to when we needed them. And we can just simply copy these back out into our important files folder if we wanted to, and then remove the encrypted ones. So again, that saved us massive amounts of time, and in just a few minutes, we've got all of our files back directly in the location where they were originally, unencrypted. So that's one way we can do that. But if we flip out back into the failover test, so we come back into our vCenter, you can see now, again, only a couple of minutes later on, we've got this whole virtual machine booted and ready to go. And because this is on an isolated network, I don't actually have network connectivity to it. So I'm going to have to log in via the console. And once I'm logged in, I've got a full copy of that virtual machine from the point in time that I chose. But also we still have the original machine up and running. So now we can make sure our legitimate application goes into the recycle bin. And we come into our important files, and our important files are still there from unencrypted. Great. So we know this point in time is great to choose. So we can just come back into Zerto, stop the test, mark it as a successful, and then we can do a full failover once this is cleaned up. So essentially now we're going to be powering off that virtual machine, essentially undoing all the automation and orchestration that Zerto has done in the first place to build, but using the same to undo that. So now we're back into a clean environment again. We can now essentially go back into the file server here, remote, and do a live failover of that into the production system. So we do a live failover, again choosing the remote. Again, we could choose the checkpoint we want to choose as well. So we don't want to choose the latest one because we know that's encrypted. So 11.17.02 is one we tested. So it makes sense to go back to the one that we chose, and it even gives us here that we actually tested it, so it's very easy to find again. So even though we've got 900 checkpoints, we know that this one is tested because it shows in the system there. And then we decide whether we want to shut down the virtual machine, reprotect it on failover. I'm not going to do reverse protection because actually I want to keep the source VM so my security and forensics teams can look into it and see what actually happened, see what strain of ransomware it was. So I want to make that, but I would like to shut the VM down. So I'm going to click next and start failover. And once we start that failover, that's going to go onto the live network and the live IP address that you've given it as well, using the automation and orchestration Zerto has. So I'm not going to show you any more, but feel free to come and stop by the booth and let us know if you want any more information. So thank you for listening.
Well, thanks for that great demo. Where can folks go if they want to find out more information about Zerto and some of the things you talked about today?
Yeah, so we're at VMware Explore. So we're booth 1502. I'll be there myself on the show floor for most of the day. I've actually got a speaking session as well, along with a couple of my colleagues as well. We'll also be running lightning sessions inside of our booth throughout the week as well. So feel free to hop along and sit down for a quick 15-minute presentation. But we're going to have loads of the Zerto team there doing custom demos and come and talk to us, the experts, as well, for anything you need to know about. Obviously, there's the Zerto website. Feel free to cut through there, or come see us at the booth 1502.
Great. Well, thanks for taking the time to speak with VMblog.
Oh, thank you guys. It's been a pleasure.
Appreciate it.